Okay, so finishing up, we're going to continue getting rid of these guys because we don't need them anymore. I think that's everywhere I've removed them from. So now, boom! And there you have it. Stuff. Alright. So anyway, so again, using namespace std or standard uh, simply gives us the ability to remove before these specific commands um, std colon colon. That's a nice way to save some time. You can get into trouble with using namespace, um, obviously through mistyping and stuff like that. Um, but for the simplicity of what we're doing right now, it's not something I'd really get too concerned about. If you want, Google it. There are some good definitions that explain that one line really well. But for the most part, that's all it's really doing. It's just removing having that verbose overtyping of std colon colon and then blah blah blah, and we're just getting down to this nice clean C out or end line. So yeah, that covers that part. Now moving on to the int main function. This one's a fun one. Okay, so our int main function. There's three things going on here. So first, we're indicating that this main function, this main part of the program, is going to be it's about an integer. We're playing with numbers, so we want to put int, um, which ta-da! And then we go over to main. This is the main part of the program. So where the program will start, where all the main part of like everything starts, will start here. So in bigger programs, you could have in your main, you can call from other files, other libraries, custom commands, functions, methods, classes, all kinds of stuff. All stuff you'll get into later. Not really important right now, but the biggest takeaway is that this is the main place. This is where we're starting. This is where everything gets done first. And since it's such a small program, we only need main. We don't need anything extra. That would just be overcomplicating it for the sake of overcomplicating. But this is a class and not government. Anyway, moving on to the two round brackets. This space is for optional arguments. So because we don't have any, we leave it blank right now. But normally, if you wanted to put in arguments into a function that you're calling, that's how you would do it. And it would be in those two round brackets, indicating that we're putting this information or putting these arguments in to begin with. Again, that's something you'll learn more about later on if you guys get heavy into functions. So we don't want to get too big into it right now because that'll just overcomplicate for the sake of overcomplicating. Moving on to the next part is the curly brackets. You see when I click on the side there, hopefully you see it, it lights up or it boxes both of them, and indicates that this whole thing in here is a block of code, and this particular block of code is the main block of code where all the action starts and stops. Um, and that's between these two curly braces. That's their big job, indicating or denoting that this is a block of code that belongs to this function. Each function will have its own block of code, and depending on what language you're playing with, they do it differently. They handle it differently. Where some don't need the curly braces at all, some need different indentation, and some force the indentation. But for the most part, this is just indicating the opening curly brace, closing curly brace, block of code. Um, and then to end this, so we're going to ignore all of this right now. This part isn't important, but this guy right here is important in the fact that up here we opened as an integer function, integer main function with no arguments. So now we're sending back or returning a 0 indicating no errors found. We have no issues. There's no problems. There's no leftovers. It's 0. We're done. We're good to go. I know that C++ isn't the only language that uses that feature, but the only one that I can think of right now is C++ that we're using right now that does use it. Again, not a huge deal, but it is required at the end. And also, you can put this number in round brackets. Not required, but you can. So that would be like that. And it should do the exact same thing it's doing right now. Yeah. So if you see another program where they're in there, it's nothing special. It's an optional feature. I say optional. Beyond that, the stuff, the research that I have done hasn't indicated anything beyond. You can have it or you don't. It's not really a big deal. Moving down from there, I think that's the bulk of it actually. To touch up a little bit more on the case sensitivity. If I were to, okay, so in the case of where we're declaring a variable and we're declaring it an integer variable. So in this case, we're making it an integer, and the name of the variable, which is not case sensitive, you can get away with however you want to write it out. It could be all lowercase, all uppercase. It doesn't matter. But if it's say all uppercase here, then down here it has to be all uppercase again, and here again all uppercase. It is case sensitive in that sense that if you type it out a certain way, you have to continue typing it out or continue calling the variable, the exact same way that you typed it when you initialized it. So you can't go from this to all lowercase and then all uppercase. It'll say, what's going on? Where's the variable? As far as it's concerned, it's a completely different variable. So the programming language itself, like I said initially, is case sensitive, but you can, like you see here, you could write this whole thing out as lowercase, but so long as you called it as a lowercase, it's fine in that regard. But beyond that, it is case sensitive, and you have to know, like I said, if you write it this way here, then you have to continue that way when you're calling it. Any results. Again, back to this part though, integer, like we talked about before, there are various ways to initialize or declare a variable as a number or numerically, but the int is being used to restrict the amount of memory it would take up. It doesn't need any more than what int would provide us. And yeah, I think that is it for the most part. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. We'll talk to you later.